This is iFanboy Pick of the Week number 938, brought to you by iFanboy listeners. It's Josh Flanagan. Conor is, I usually have a thing. Ryan is here for Conor, Ryan Haupt.
Hey, on a scale of like 1 to comatose, how awake do you need me for the next hour? Like, can I because I know you do the show alone from time to time.
I don't need you to be, I can do that once a year, and even that feels like too much. I don't need you to be peppy, but I need you to keep us going.
All right, well,
I need direction is what I need.
If I sound more energetic after a snorting sound, don't read anything into that, and we're just going to power through and get this show done.
Given the time of day, I'm used to the person that I'm hanging out with falling asleep. Ooh, marriage burn. This is Pick of the Week number 938. In case I didn't say that, every week one of us picks the book they like the best from their stack of comic books, the weekly comic books that came out this Tuesday and Wednesday. We should have done that. We should have said this is for comics that came out the week of Wednesday, July 24th. We should have done that for years. It just occurred to me. But it doesn't matter. These are the books that came out on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. So the best comic, that's called the Pick of the Week. We talk about the other books from the week. We will. There's a patron pick, which the patrons who are supporting the show, they vote, they pick. That's how it becomes the show. The pick. Too many picks there. There's listener mail. It should be a good time. As we said, Conor is on. He's on sabbatical. He's on a very short sabbatical. How long does it need to be a sabbatical?
I think it just needs to be any, above you approved relief of your academic duties for a period of time.
Is it only an academic thing?
I've never heard of sabbatical. Well, I mean, my context is academics.
That's true. So. You've never worked. I've worked in many industries, but I don't know how to even
work. Never worked. I was fucking hauling boxes and barking orders all day today. How dare you?
I didn't finish the sentence. I meant you've never worked in different areas. I didn't mean you obviously work.
I'm a nonprofit guy now.
I moved along to the next sentence before I finished the previous one, which that's a thing for me. I told you that's why Conor needs to be here. He's like, you haven't said all the words you needed to. Oh, that's right. You thankfully had the pick of the week. There'll be spoilers. I mixed those up. What was the pick, Ryan?
Are you saying thankful because you would have had a hard time picking, or
just didn't want to do it?
All right. Well, the pick this week.
I just did it.
Yeah, no, it's good. Sometimes I'm curious because sometimes I feel like
makes sense.
Sometimes the pick is a burden because of the stack of books that you get. You know, it's sort of.
You talk about yours, and then we'll get to it. But I don't know what it would have been right there.
I think this was actually a pretty strong week of books. It's a book. It was a week of books where I had a lot to say about a lot of different books, but it was a little tricky to pick a standout. But I think the book that ended up standing out the most for me was Void Rivals number 11, a story by Robert Kirkman, art by Lorenzo De Felici, colors by Patricio Del Pesce and Del Picchi. Where do we land on the CH pronunciation for Italian last names, Josh?
Well, if he's Italian, see, I would think Patricio. Del Pesce, but I don't think Del Pesce.
All right, well, let's go with Del Pesce and letters by Russ Wooten.
Del Pesce.
Like that. And let's all presume his hands were moving when he said that. So this is in the Energon universe.
My hands. I'm doing it now. I've got that little OK symbol, moving it up and down.
Good.
I've never done gesture racism. Maybe I have.
The reason that this book made it as pick of the week is it starts off with an awesome action sequence where we've got our two protagonists from the two different. There's a lot of nouns in this book that I haven't quite grokked yet, so I can't like speak. Even though it's the pick, I can't say that I know like the characters' names or the races that they come from or all that. But the book is still working on all those levels, even without me being able to fully internalize all of that new terminology. But the reason this was pick is because it starts off with this amazing fight sequence with multiple callbacks to both, the Transformers world and the world of Void Rivals that's been built up over the past 11 issues. And then we get some really cool world building where the Autobot that's been helping these two characters fight to survive teaches them how to use the Energon, and this is again part of the Energon universe, to heal their own wounds based on the crystals that they have embedded in their foreheads. And the moment where this book became pick of the week, it was actually like a single sequence where I felt it, was the guy with the hand droid stops and makes sure that the information about using Energon to heal people gets to the other side, gets to his opposing team, so to speak, because he observed when he was in that world a couple issues back that there's a lot of unhoused people, there's a lot of people suffering in that sector that he's not a part of, and like his empathy overrode his desire to win against the other side, and so like he made sure that the information of how to help his enemy made it through in a way where like him and the other character had this really frank discussion where she's like, wait, why did you help me? Like, what's your end game? What are you trying to play at? And he's like, I'm not. There was a moment where I saw that your people were suffering and I saw this avenue to help. And I thought it was the only right thing to do was to make that information available so that you could help. And I thought it was a really strong character moment. I thought it was actually sort of an un-Kirkman-esque character moment. Like Kirkman has done a lot of books. I would say this is probably his third book where there's sort of a nihilism of like, it's about survival and it's about protecting your own against everything else. So you had Walking Dead, and then you had that book where it was like Philly got warped into a different world. I can't even remember what it was called right now.
That's not ringing a bell at all.
I think it was the same artist. So anyway, I just thought the idea that like in a time of war, in a time of strife, the enemy seeing an opportunity to help the other and taking it and justifying it in this really good conversation was really well executed. And then I just felt like Kirkman, I think, has a lot of strengths as a writer. And I think one of the strengths that he has is pacing and the pacing of issue by issue storytelling. And so I couldn't help but notice that this was an issue 11. And so, you know, it's the second to last issue of an upcoming trade. And so one character does something really selfless that surprises the other character, catches them off guard. And I can't help but think the next issue is going to have a turn where that goes wrong for them. And it got me excited for the next issue, not based on anything that was even like directly hinted at, just based on the story structure that I've seen Kirkman employ over the years. And so, and the art is fantastic. The characters are great. I love the mixing of the alien races and the Autobots and the Transformers and all that. So I've enjoyed this book all through its run, and this particular issue I just felt was one of the strongest issues in terms of fleshing out the characters and what they can potentially do for each other and help each other or hurt each other. And I'm all in. It's great.
It's that scene that you're talking about really was a standout, and I really like that because ultimately you're reading comic books and there's always going to be something about the hero, and you're sort of watching this thing happen, and you know, this character. I don't. It's great. It's 11 issues. I have no idea what either of their names are. The guy, you know,
with the handroid.
Yeah, with him. I mean, I remember that when I'm reading it, but then but that's just. I'm not. It's not okay. He does a heroic thing, and it came across as like really. I mean, maybe not realistic, but it's what you want to see. And then the best part, the follow up to that, I think is really interesting. Is immediately she just goes. Not immediately, but I'm sorry, I won't do that again. And then later she does. And then she apologizes for it again, which, you know, it's character development. And it's interesting because it's interesting. People don't like to say they're sorry. And so to sort of have her be that part, and there's all this history and weight that is on, you know, the war between their people and everything. She says, I'm sorry, I won't ever do that again. And like, instead of waiting for later to bring it back, he does it on the last page of the book. Like, so that thing that she says, even though she understands it, she's still going to have this reaction. And so you've got a loaded gun in there. Yeah. This conflict is always going to exist. I think what's really interesting about this book is that I look forward to when I see it, I really like it. And, you know, I go, oh, this book, it's good. I don't think about it a lot until I sort of see it in my list. And then I'm into it because, you know, like you said, the pacing is really good. I don't know what's going to happen. And I think that one of the most fascinating things is how well it's woven into like having Transformers in it. Mm-hmm. It's the strangest thing. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, it's kind of a Transformers book, but it's not. It just, I mean, it's this Energon universe. It's this thing that they're doing. And I can't think of examples of this that have worked in the past very well. You know, right. Like if somebody just started a book and like, oh yeah, some Star Wars people are in it sometimes. You'd be like, that's stupid.
Was I feel like often Transformers, the sort of themes of Transformers is like, how do the struggles between the Autobots and the Decepticons map to our world, the world that we already understand, and instead we're exploring a world that is new to us, and then we're mapping Autobots onto it, which you and I probably understand the Autobots better than we understand either of these other two cultures that the Autobots are interacting with. And so it's weird that the Autobots then become like our eyes and ears into this world.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Thank you.
I don't know that I would have made it my pick of the week, but I don't really have an argument against it. It's just like it's like another solid issue with some really great character moments, and I don't know if it's the illusion of progress, but it feels like there's progress, and that's what you want.
It really just felt to me like there was it was the moment of heroism was subtle.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't an action-based moment of heroism. It was a decision that the character made to do the heroic thing by simply providing information. And I felt that was somewhat like in a media of comics that is dominated by heroic acts that are usually punctuated with violence. To see a heroic act that was punctuated with the sharing of information and knowledge, I was like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. And I just dug it.
I like how that dude caught it. First of all, he yells, wait. And the guy's like, what? You shouldn't do that in battle, by the way. He throws it to him. Dude never stops running.
Yeah.
He runs straight to his people with it. And they're just like, why would anyone do this? Like, they don't understand selflessness. Yeah. So that was good. I can be down with that. I think if I had, there would have been a chance. I think there's a lot of books this week that I could have made pick of the week. But I read Batman in the Dark Age #4 from Mark Russell and Michael Allred early on.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really, really like it a lot.
I think if this had been 25% shorter, like if you'd cut out some of the stuff that I didn't love, this could have also easily been picked.
What was it? What is it? Because I know all the stuff. Like, what's the part that you say you think you didn't love? What would that be? What would you take out?
That's a good question. I kind of actually didn't love the introduction of the Rogues Gallery. Granted, we might that it could pay off at some point, but I thought like there were some. I mean, this issue, the one area where it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I know Mike Allred is a singular talent and not to everyone's taste, but like we were introduced to a lot of new costumes in this issue. So this issue, we see the Dark Age version of Catwoman, and her costume is very similar to Batman, so I didn't have a problem with that. But like Riddler's costume is terrible. Penguin's costume, I actually dug. I liked that he's got like a beak on a top hat. That's fun. Robin wearing a helmet, while sensible, I also thought was dumb.
Well, it's ugly.
Yeah.
There's no way around that. But I feel like also he takes it off quickly. You know, like this is stupid. He doesn't want it there. So maybe that'll be like, it could be a story point in that Batman's like, you got to have this to be safe. And he's, as the, the acrobat, he's like, I can't work with this. Like, eat some hat. He takes it off immediately. He gets rid of it. Mm-hmm. It's like, we know it's dumb. I'm not thrilled with, I don't enjoy the Joker movie. I don't understand the Joker movie. I don't think it was that good. I know too much about Joker.
Right.
To be able to judge that like the rest of the public does. And what happens in here is very similar. It's the most similar thing to one of the things I've really loved is that movie, which was very, very successful, didn't seem to bleed into the comics very much, but it did here. Mm-hmm. I think.
Yes, I felt that too. Very Arthur Fleck.
So I don't love that. Is that he has his name in it?
I believe so. I only remember that because I'm a fan of the musician Bella Fleck. And every time they say Arthur Fleck, I'm like, well,
Flecktones.
Yeah, Flecktones.
The girlfriend, and it was the 70s, so he starts dating his therapist. The girlfriend and Harley Quinn looking like a hell of a lot alike. So the whole time I was like, is this girlfriend going to be Harley Quinn? Now what we did, we just started off complaining about things. So I'm going to go back the other way.
It was a great issue.
It was a great issue. There's a lot to love. I think right away, that first scene with Robin sort of diving into the bad guy having dinner in a disgusting old rotten house, which is weird. But that shot of that, like the inside of that room, it just totally gives you the feeling of what it's supposed to. It's it's canted, it's deep, it's dark and kind of grimy,
atmospheric.
Yeah, it's It's exactly, and then so you switch to the context. You change scenes completely as you go back into the present / future as Batman or Bruce Wayne is in the aquatic aerobics class. Which is just, it's so hard to watch that stuff.
I mean, I can't wait till I'm that old. I'm so ready to do aqua aerobics or whatever.
Aquasize?
Aquasize.
I think that's it.
That sounds great.
It's such a weird book. I mean, like, I know that we've seen a million different versions of Batman's origin, and I've never seen one like this.
I just can't, with this book in particular, I can't help but feel like it would work better as a standalone, and the fact that I know that it's contemporaneous with the Superman book set in the same world, to me it's too incongruous with what happened in that Superman book, which we love through and through. And I feel like if this was just completely standalone, not connected to that Superman narrative at all, I would almost like it better.
I don't remember that book other than the fact that I liked it, surprisingly. Right. And so the fact that I wasn't even thinking about that, I do know that, when Ra's al Ghul shows up for the last 5 pages, there's a genuine, oh shit, this is bad. And not in the way like when you see the Joker, you go, oh shit, this is bad. Like there's a story reason why this is bad. And the way that Al Ghul talks to Bruce, he's got everything figured out. He's a match for him in all the ways that actually matter, not just being scary. And meanwhile, that is juxtaposed by, the last helicopter out of Saigon.
Right. Now you never worked in print journalism, right?
No, I never worked in any journalism.
Okay. So like the Gotham Gazette page, I had a few quibbles with. Like, I don't think any editor approves a headline that says Wayne exec found dead, period, very dead, period. Also, both the articles were center justified, and that, for some reason that drove me insane. I don't think you would center justify the text in those.
I think you do, but you wouldn't indent the beginning of the paragraph. You would put
that might have been
line space.
What made it obvious in a way that was awkward for me.
The headlines, they're not center justified, they're left justified. They're normally that spaced out thing where they're even all along. That's what it is. I don't know what that's called.
Yeah.
The headlines don't look right.
It's the justification option I've literally never selected in my entire life.
No, you wouldn't, but that's because that's where they use it. But besides that, like pretty much every page in this is a joy to look at. And this is for a person who really didn't used to get Mike Allred, but I really enjoyed the last few things I've read of his. So things that I didn't like when I was younger often turn out to be things that I then see the value in much later. That's just how I roll. So it's a great book. It's really wonderful. Good. NYX #1. Now there was a series, I think it was by Brian Wood, called NYX. I didn't read it, but I know that it existed. I don't believe that this is related to it. Did you read this book?
Yes, I did.
I don't know what to make of it. I liked it, but I didn't like. I was like, this is really good. I don't know if it's for me. That's kind of where I left with it. Yeah, I don't know. I can't. I thought it was pretty good, but I can't put my finger on it.
It's a new team. It's mutant focused. So the main character seems to be Miss Marvel, and she hooks up with
she's delightful.
A friendship sense. I go back and forth between her being delightful and her being grating. I must admit. But she befriends I'll tell you what I like about her.
Okay. I like that she is the fresh-faced, overexcited person, but that she's also confident in her skills, because I don't want to watch another character who's young thinking, I don't know if I'm good enough. Like, she knows that she is. There's a bit in here where she, like, they're like, I'm going to go to club again. She's like, I got to do what I really do well. And she goes off and she does, hero shit. And I just thought it was a reminder of the parts of her being mature that are valuable.
Yeah, and I liked when she talked about like her power of embiggening, which is like a Simpsons joke come to fake 616 life, and Sophie Cuckoo, one of the 5 Cuckoo sisters, says like, "Wait, you call it embiggening?" And instead of like getting defensive about it, Kamala is just like, "Yeah, that's what it is. Like it's my power is to embiggen." I was very disturbed by her stretching her own face over her own face to hide her identity for the club fight. That was not okay.
Pretty good, though. Just in terms of like, every time somebody thinks of a new way to do one of these things, I have to give them credit because they're scraping the bottom of the barrel for options at this point.
Yeah. It just...
I think that I don't know anything about the Cuckoos, really. So
I think they're proteges of Emma Frost. They might even be clones of Emma Frost or something.
Did the reveal do anything for you?
No, not for me. So the characters on this burgeoning team seem to be Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, Sophie Cuckoo, one of the 5 Cuckoo sisters, and the other 4 seem to be on the bad side. Laura Kinney, Wolverine, Anil, who's a mutant with lizard powers, who's also a great bartender. So like, sounds like someone I would be friends with, if I'm being honest. And then Prodigy, who's they made a big deal about getting a tenure track position at ESU or I think whatever fake university he's at, which, good for him.
I did think that was premature.
We don't have time to get into a whole discussion of the lack of openings for tenure track positions for faculty jobs in these United States of America, but I'm glad Prodigy got one. And the whole idea of like a professor teaching a course on Krakoan history right after the fall of Krakoa, and that folks who actually lived or interacted with the Krakoan ecosystem taking part in that class and having commentary as a lived-in experience, like, that's actually pretty cool. Like, that's a good idea. I'm into that. This issue, I think, like many issue ones, set up a lot more things than it paid off, but the setups were cool. I'm interested.
Mm-hmm. I think that you're right in that. I was like, he didn't seem like a very good professor. He seemed like a new person. So he's going to teach his history to people, and he was very sure about how he was doing. I really read that as if it was. I read that scene as if it was real. I was like, I don't know about this guy as a professor. There's no context over the thing, and he's got a very objective sort of take on things, and I didn't know who he was, so it would have helped a little more if I did, I guess. I don't know. He was on.
He was on. What was the Kieran Gillen, Jamie McKelvey, Young Avengers? I think, wasn't he on that team for a minute?
I don't know. I don't remember. Not the one that I read. I may have gotten off at some point, and then they did a second sort of run of them. But they did the second run because the first one wasn't them, was Heinberg.
Right.
I mean, there was things I liked about this, but I don't know. I'll probably read another one, is my guess, actually, because I really like several of the characters. And I also liked that, is it Sophie Cuckoo?
Yes, that's the one who's friends.
The good Cuckoo. There's a bunch of times where they have basically avoided cliche of like the pretty girl, and she's like going to hang out with her, but she's going to pick on her. She's going to look down on her. And I don't think that she does those things in any way that would be considered serious. Like, she respects Kamal right from the beginning, I think, as a person, like, I'm your friend. And so like that means that A, she's willing to reach out, and B, that she's actually a little needy, and she's looking for, someone to relate to, as opposed to just being above it all. It's a subtle thing, but I thought that worked really well. Yeah,
I actually liked the way that the female characters are written throughout this book, and the way they bounced off each other, and like there was a lot of give and get. It was good. Prodigy's mutant power is that he has the telepathic ability to absorb and mimic the knowledge and skills from the minds of the people close to him, which sounds like a patron power. But also, I mean, easy to see how that would make a person absolutely insufferable.
How's the bad guy named Empath, but he's the worst person? It shouldn't work that way. He should be a nice person. They should relate to you.
Yeah,
that's some feel what you're going through.
Listen, Gen Xer, that's some post-millennial nonsense. I don't know what's going on there.
Okay. Well, the word empathy is really what I was just getting at. That seems to be a good word.
I'm sorry, you're not canceled. Right. You've been canceled for not understanding that empathy is bad now.
It is?
I don't know. Apparently, according to this book.
I guess we don't. We need more of that. They said all you need is love, but really what we need is empathy. It's just harder to rhyme that, Beatles. Patreon.com/iFanboy is where you can go to directly support this show if you like it. if it's an important part of your life, your comic book enjoyment experience, part of your way to stick with this culture or be part of this culture that we're very proud to have been part of building, you can go to patreon.com/iFanboy and you can support the show at whatever level that you feel comfortable with. We appreciate everybody does that. There's a great community on Discord, another one on Facebook, which apparently maybe has split. There's some sort of schism. I don't really know. I'm off the Facebook. There's a monthly patron hangout. We don't, it was a while ago, but shows were unlocked. We do a lot of these special edition shows because of the patrons. If you subscribe on a yearly level, it's 10% off. There's tier exclusive merch. That's the reward. $5 or higher, you get a patron power at some point. Access to the Discord server. $10 higher. I can't say words. $10 level or higher, you get access to an ad-free version of this show. Find more details at patreon.com/iFanboy. iFanboy.com. Nope. iFanboy.threadless.com is our merch store. There are 13 designs. You get them on t-shirts or phone cases or notebooks, or I bet they have notebooks. I haven't checked on that. Shower curtains, bath mats, skateboards. I'm guessing underwear. I'm assuming there's underwear you can get. iFanboy.com/support is a PayPal link there if you don't want to deal with that stuff, but you'd like to help out. And if you are a billionaire, you can use that, I think, but it might be easier to contact us directly, is my guess. Go to iFanboy.com/Amazon where you will find a general shopping link. You know how affiliate links work. Going there doesn't cost you a thing. It's very easy, very helpful. And then there's bookshop.org, where it makes sense. We will have a link to bookshop.org, which aggregates local bookstores so that you can be buying books from them. That will be all of those parts. We have a Tony Fleece's corner. I hadn't even been aware of that.
It made sense.
It totally is. You notice the pattern and you put it on there. I am so happy when Uncanny Valley comes out. I just had no idea that this was a book that I really wanted, and it's very joyful to me.
Yeah, it's really fun. I think each issue, the pacing of the story is interesting. I feel like each issue, obviously we're exploring the world. This is issue 4, and I think few new series that I can remember have made me so hungry to know what's going on, and it gets doled out in ways where like you learn enough each issue that there's a little bit of meat on the bone, but I'm like, damn it, I want the next one. Like, come on, give me more. And that's good, right? That's indicative of like a strong storytelling. If I end the issue and I immediately want to know what happens next. Not just from a narrative point of view, but from a world building point of view, I guess is that what makes this a little bit distinct.
I think one thing that I love is, even more so than a movie like Roger Rabbit, where you're sort of got the animated toon characters over top of the real world stuff. The art in this does an amazing job of sort of blending all the elements of cartoon versus quote unquote reality. Just from the way that the lines become solid and the color becomes 2-dimensional and flat.
Yeah.
But just even on individual objects in between it. So like the book is constantly blending things back and forth in a way that is both more effective and more subtle than any way that I've seen it before. And it's a neat visual trick to indicate what's what.
It's also a great use of, there's that cartoon trope of everyone getting into fisticuffs and creating like the ball of dust, right? And then this issue in particular uses that sort of ball of dust, everyone fighting, as like transitional moments in both in the issue in time. So like it uses that to like then set up a flashback, which traditionally that trope in cartoons would just be used as a joke for like the hero escaping or whatever. And to use it for like a legitimate storytelling device was cool. Like I hadn't seen that before.
All right, 2 bits and we're gonna move along. Short section. The scene, the sort of flashbacks of how the father took care of the daughter, and like every time something was bad, he'd go roping cows or tornadoes or whatever, and eventually she's like, this doesn't help anything. I thought that was very silly and mature all at the same time. And then finally the kung fu guy unmasking the bad guy, it's just like Mr. Carruthers or whoever it was. I was like, oh, that's the best. That guy turning into a car was the best part of the last issue. So whoever the kung fu guy is, I can't remember his name.
It's apparently Jack Kirby creation, which Conor mentioned the last time I was on.
Turbo Teen.
Yeah.
Turbotine, one of the creepiest things. It's based on it. This is not Turbotine. It's some other sort of congregation of it. Local Man, the best book I'm not reading. That's what I understand.
Man, I'm fascinated by the fact that you are not reading this.
It's just because I missed it in the beginning. I was out that week, and I had it for a while, and they started to pile up, and I just thought, I'm not going to get to this. I have too many books. So I'd missed the boat.
I've talked about this book a number of times on the show. I'll just say it continues to be excellent. It continues to be sort of a hilarious deconstruction. It's sort of, I don't know, like it's sad Midwestern Astro City. Like it's just really good. And I love the world that it's building. It's fleshing out a superhero world that is both recognizable but unique. And this issue just sort of continued that along. The main character, I mean, Josh, it's crazy. Like the main character is basically Hawkeye, but they take the idea of him having perfect aim and make it into a metatextual power where it's not that his aim is perfect, it's that he sees where everything needs to go to get to where it needs to be.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's good.
That sounds like something that's much smarter than anything we would give out as a patron power.
Right, but there's also he goes on like a shrooms trip and imagines that his the girl he likes sends him a picture of her butthole. So like it's also that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's levels.
Like Kramer's apartment. Zatanna bring down the house number 2. Number 1 was at the pick of the week, I guess a month ago. We've got Mariko Tamaki writing this story and Javier Rodriguez drawing and coloring it. And I think this might have been my pick of the week. I think.
Have you read much else by Mariko Tamaki?
No.
She's incredible. She's an incredible.
I recognize her name.
Yeah, I would say the one that I would if folks are enjoying Zatanna, the book I would heartily recommend is This One Summer, which was a graphic novel published by First Second Books in 10 years ago in 2014. Amazingly, awesome. Like there was that I would say it's at the tail end of that early to mid aughts slice of life resurgence that we had in comics. And this is like a slice of life book about 2 girls having a summer vacation together in a beach property, and their parents are dealing with issues. They're discovering themselves. It's a beautiful coming of age graphic novel. I absolutely adored it when I read it. I would recommend it to everyone. This One Summer, available from bookshop.org.
So I thought that this answered a lot of the questions that I had left over from the first issue, where I was like, I don't really know where they're going or where she fits in. But I think that this sort of smoothed out, at least gave me a direction for sort of what was going on, because it was a little ambiguous before, given there's so many versions of these characters. What went wrong is very bad, and they're going to try to solve it, but everybody seems to know stuff that the main character doesn't. And she handles it. She's confused, but it's not defeating her. You're seeing a little bit of the hero go through, and this is one of those last page reveals where I don't know who this character is, but I instantly know this isn't good. That the bunny lady is there.
Yeah. I really liked the last page reveal. I think that it made the issue for me. I was actually a little frustrated by this issue up until the last page reveal, and I was like, oh, that was good. That was really good. Also,
just the Javier Rodriguez, just every page has got something beautiful. There's just something interesting going on in every single page, and some of it's really simple and some of it isn't, but the combination of sort of the layouts and the colors is spectacular. It's some really good stuff right now. Some of the best art being put out.
Agreed.
Let's get to the corner. The Star Wars corner. Star Wars Darth Vader number 48. We're coming to the end of this Darth Vader road that we've been on for far more issues than I could remember. You put it on the list. What do you have to say?
I put it on the list because I assumed you were up to date on it.
I absolutely am, but I'd like you to start, because I don't know what I would have to say about it, because I just enjoy these. I tend to not think about them very much.
It's interesting the way that these issues sort of fill in the blanks. It's obvious. I think these issues are filling in blanks that I never needed filled in, but every once in a while they hit on something where I'm like, oh, that's an interesting idea that connects. I think for you and I, like, the movies are the thing, right? Mm-hmm. And even the Disney shows are not really, to me, part of the important canon. It's just the 8 movies. I'm going to delete number 9 from my memory if I can. Um, but to see Luke interact with...
I believe there are 4 movies, if I'm going to be honest.
Sure, let's go with that. I like that better. But to see Luke interact with some of Padme's handmaidens, in this particular instance, Sabe, I never thought about, like, that's never an interaction between 2 characters I ever would have thought about on my own. It was never part of the story that I needed, but it's kind of interesting. Like, it's kind of interesting to see someone who knew Padme really well enough to impersonate her watch Padme's son in action. I've had a hard time holding on to the whole, like, so Vader's got like this crystal staff and crystal shield, and it seems like those are finally getting taken away, and I'm kind of good with that because I didn't quite.
It's been going on a while.
Yeah, it has been.
Here's the thing: like, if I'm looking at this objectively right now. I don't know that I really like this right now. Like I keep reading it. I don't hate it or anything, but I'm looking at it like there's stuff in here I don't like. Almost don't notice it when I'm reading it. There's a certain part of me that shuts off that critical part in certain books, and I think I do it in Star Wars books. I think that what you're right is that you're watching the sort of experimentation of what happens between the scenes of the movies. And the key there is that they have to do something interesting enough to keep my attention.
Without
but it can't
changing anything.
It can't touch the thing too much. And I think that having Luke meet his mother's body double, or meeting anybody who knew his mom and being aware of it, is a little too close to the sun.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that would change things, and I'm not okay with that, because there's a very specific scene in Jedi where he doesn't know anything about her. Oh, then Leia apparently does, and that doesn't make sense. But that's what does make sense if you say there's only 4 movies. I will say that there were several pages in here. Let's go pages 2 in particular, where Luke is supposed to be doing some acrobatic flipping around stuff, and I was like, this art sucks. like the stiffest. Well, it was like watching Sam Jackson run in the Captain Marvel movie. Like, it's not good. Like, I don't mind the design, the drawings, but the sort of action and the movement of the characters is not very good. Also,
I kind of hate the yellow lightsaber.
Yeah, it's too urine-ish.
And I just don't like that he's had like an in-between lightsaber. Like, it's
not a good color. It's not cool. It doesn't look cool.
Yeah.
It looks wrong. It looks like a training lightsaber, which I guess it is, but
have we ever really gotten into the details of, like, why is the bad lightsaber color red, but the X-Wings fire red lasers, and the good lightsaber color is green, but the TIE fighters fire green lasers?
No.
All right. I don't think we get into it now. I don't think
it means anything.
I think it means a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is you can assign your meaning. Boy, there's some bad art in here. It's not bad art. Like, it all does its job really well. It's just that there's a few scenes where, like, boy, this is just not dynamic at all. Did you ever read How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way? Because that would help.
I guess the thing I still like about this book is this book is over and over again a group of folks, and they're always different folks. They're sometimes rebels, or sometimes Imperials, or sometimes Imperial rebels, who think they've gotten it over on Vader. And it's always a little fun to see how Vader is just like, no, I'm still better than all of you, and I will destroy you.
Yeah, he's never going to lose. He can't.
Yeah.
That's why I like the little robot. Like, the robot knows that. He's like, whatever you need. You get mad at me for trying to help, throw me away, whatever. I'm still here for you, dude. It's fun. It's not great, but I'm going to be upset when it's over. I've been reading it for years.
And I think the reason it works is because I think the reasons it works, part of the reasons it works, is the character design. We talked about this before, so I'm reiterating somewhat, but the character design of Vader is so strong, and then the voice that we all have in our head for Vader is so strong that I think it just, like, our cultural awareness of Vader fills in a lot of the blanks on how this character works in a comic relative to how we know that they work in film.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're right. And that helps. And also, like, they shouldn't be too specific. We don't hear his thoughts. We don't get into it. We just see that head move, and then we assign whatever meaning we need to it.
I mean, we know what the thoughts would be, Josh.
Yeah.
He hates sand. It's cold. It's coarse. Gets everywhere.
Is that from one of the films?
It is. Number 2, I believe.
Yeah. That's one of the worst ones. I fell asleep in that one. It's very. I mean, granted, I'd been up all night and I'd seen it for the third time in 12 hours, but that was the last time I did that. Those are the books that we wanted to talk about. But over at patreon.com/iFanboy, every member, every patron, there's no level, as all of you get to vote on a book that they would like us to read. We call that the Patron Pick. Conor should know better than to text me during this thing.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's
unbelievable.
Terrible. Unbelievable. I'm leaving this in. I don't know if you heard my text tone for him.
I'm leaving this in, said the guy not editing this show.
Oh, that's a good point. It's because I hit record. If I'm doing it, I just assume I'm doing it. You can leave it in or not. I don't care. Patron Pick this week is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, which is written everywhere as TMNT, and I was saying it like that, but the cover clearly says Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. Written by Jason Aaron.
What?
Just let that sink in. Drawn by Joel Jones. Colors by Rhonda Pattinson and letters by Sean Lee. As far as I can tell, this is not a reboot. There's been an ongoing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series from IDW for a while. This seems to pick up wherever it left off, but the bold new start seems to be a shift and sort of like a new start over where Raphael's in prison, of course, and a A-list creative team. And here we are.
You say, of course, but I mean, the thought that I continuously had throughout reading this is, well, they're teenagers, so like unless he's 18 or 19, two of the last years of teenagedom, he should not be in an adult prison. Mutant or not, he's simply not old enough, Josh.
I mean, I think it's like a boy band. If you were in a boy band, even if you're in your mid-40s and you go out and play a show, you're still going to be called a boy band.
So you think this is a 20-something Raph?
I think a lot of time has passed.
All right. Well, let's okay. So to sort of break down what has happened. Remember that time Daredevil got put in prison by Bendis, and then Ed Brubaker had to write his way out of it? It's that, but it's a turtle.
Was he in? I assume you weren't reading this before that.
No, I wasn't.
Okay, so we don't know if this started off this way. I feel like one of the first Jason Aaron things I read was Hellblazer. He did a short run of it, and in that, John Constantine was in prison. Now, I should check on that before I say it to the thousands of people.
But you didn't.
I didn't know. So maybe in a second you'll talk and I'll look that up. And I'm almost sure that was one, and it was one of the first Hellblazer stories I ever read.
Well, I'll say I was a little bit dismissive in my initial description of the issue. This was excellent. I'm a fan of many things that are the ingredients into the final product that produced this issue. I'm a fan of Jason Aaron. I'm my kid almost accidentally dialed him on the phone the other day when he was playing with my phone, because he's with the last name Aaron. He's one of the first contacts, and he like hit the button. I was like, no, don't call Jason Aaron, please. So I'm a fan of Jason Aaron. I'm a fan of Joel Jones. I'm a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm a fan of guy in prison undercover stories. And this is like Raph is in prison undercover at the behest of the warden, but it's like it's got that classic mix of like the warden still sucks. The warden's not a good guy, but Raph is willing to like help to figure out the problem. But then Raph gets framed by the Foot Clan for the warden getting murdered with a couple of sides, and now
which is what happened in The Departed.
Oh, it was good.
By the way, that was Brian Azzarello who wrote that story. So
I was gonna say I have a hard time imagining Jason Aaron writing Hellblazer, but Brian Azzarello makes more sense.
He wrote 2 issues of Hellblazer, was the first American to write Hellblazer.
This issue was excellent. It was almost pick of the week. It was really a coin toss between this and Void Rivals. I really, really liked this issue. I think maybe the only reason that I didn't fully go for this pick of the week is in the back matter, they said that, the next issue is going to be the Michelangelo issue. It's going to be Jason Aaron writing it, but a different artist. And I was actually like a little disappointed that like we weren't going to get the next part of this story with Raph. It was going to sort of bounce around to the 4 brothers.
I didn't like that. I wanted to sort of get into a story here.
Yeah, right? Like, so it sounds like they're going to bounce around to the 4 brothers. There's going to be an issue with each of the 4, and they're going to come together, and we're going to see where the story goes from there. But like, I kind of really just wanted to see where this Raph story went. Like, I didn't need the other 3 in this particular instance.
I mean, Raph wasn't my favorite, and like I feel like in the original, I think Raphael had the first miniseries, the first special with his name on it. And so like this was familiar. This was very familiar. It's like I've seen this story and stuff. We've seen this story with the Punisher. We've seen this story with Daredevil. We've seen this story with Captain America. Like we've seen this story, but since the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are literally like a direct ripoff of a thing, fine. That's in their nature. Go with it. Yeah. But I also have a style of comics. I mean, of Frank Miller, which sort of like how these stories go.
For folks who don't know, the truck that Matthew Murdock prevents the old man from getting hit by that then blinds him with the radioactive goo, that's the same truck that creates the Turtles.
Allegedly.
Supposedly.
So, but what I was going to say is that like...
And Daredevil was trained by a guy named Stick, and the Turtles were trained by a guy named Splinter, which is a small piece of a stick.
It's not deep satire.
Daredevil
they weren't trying to hide
a ninja clan named the Hand, and the Turtles who live underground fight a clan named the Foot.
Anyways, what I was going to say was, so even though these tropes are familiar, they fit really well. And again, the most important thing is that like it's done really well. Right away when it starts, it's like these tropes are familiar, and I'm completely interested in this, Oz, Shawshank Redemption, Departed, Daredevil story. And I had focused very much on the fact that Jason Aaron was writing it because I'm very, very familiar with his work and have been for many, many years. And so I like to see how they apply that. But
there was some great ninja bullshit in this in this issue, which is like, I loved the moment where Raph is trying to get some rest in his cell, and he's just like, at night the cells go silent unless you've got the senses of a shadow warrior, and his eyes pop open. I'm like, oh, that's dumb, but it's good.
Yeah. So what I was focusing on that part, and I was very happy with it. I feel like Jason Aaron he's like decided, he's like, what if I just don't do only superheroes and I just do every other thing that would be fun to do, which is what Robert Kirkman's going through, by the way, too. Different way, but sort of the same deal. Then at the end, I was like, oh, this looks really good. Who drew this again? I go back, I was like, oh, Joelle Jones. She's killing it. Just what a I think to me she's an underrated artist. I don't tend to think of her straight up, but every time she, like, who are your favorite artists? But every time she does something, like, she's a huge talent, like enormously gifted comic book storyteller and artist.
I think the only thing I don't love about the modern interpretation of the Turtles is that they've almost turned Raphael. So like you said you weren't a big Raph guy, but I always was a big Raphael guy just because our names both start with R, and when you're a child, that stuff matters. Yeah, that's like literally all it was. They've kind of taken Raph from the guy who was like kind of angry and frustrated that he was forced to live in a sewer because he was a mutant into the Hulk, where it's like he's so angry that his anger is a superpower, and I don't love that. I thought Jason Aaron wielded it well here in terms of like how he uses his anger to calm himself in the midst of a fight. Mm-hmm. So I liked this better than some of the other Turtle stuff I've read recently, and that's good. And I'm curious. To
me, I guess having only really read the very earliest stuff, to me, I was like, this makes sense. This is who he feels like to me.
So then I think the thing that I wonder about is how will Jason Aaron's sensibilities, and Jason Aaron is supremely talented and I think, has a lot of layers and ability to write just about any character. I think the thing that did still hook me, even though I wanted to see the continuation of Raph's story, I am kind of interested in how Jason Aaron does a Donatello story, how he does a Michelangelo story, how he does a Leonardo story.
Who do you think my favorite turtle is?
That's a good question. It's not Leo.
No.
So, I mean, I think the Turtles present sort of a mirror to the person's inner thoughts of themselves. And so this thing I'm struggling with is I don't know if you think that you're funnier or if you think that you're smarter. So that determines whether I think you're a Mikey or a Raph. I'm going to go with Mikey.
No. He was a goofball.
You're a Donnie guy?
I'm a Donatello guy. And it's not that I think it's that I aspire to, that's the thing that I, He was the introverted one who was thinking about stuff and doing things, and was intelligence was his weapon.
I got in a big fight with a couple of text buddies of mine who mentioned on the show before, Jesse and Abe. I asked them who they thought the best fighter of the four turtles was. And they both said Donnie. And I thought that was the absolute worst answer.
It's
terrible
Leonardo.
Answer.
Well, it could be Raphael.
I think it's Mikey. I think the
Really?
nunchaku are the most difficult weapon to master, and he masters it without practicing that much. And so,
No, you're talking about which weapon style. It's just at the end of the day, like, who is going to win the fight.
But it's not Donnie.
It's not. But that's part of why I love him, because I'm not a fighter. I mean, he can do it. He has to. He did the work. It's Leo.
Leo works the hardest at it, for sure.
Well, there's an issue, early on where, like, he's hunted and he fights off, like, all of the Foot Clan by himself, and he won't give up.
No, some of those early Turtles issues are great.
They are. We did a talk split on it, or a book split on it at some point not too long ago. So if you feel like
and
colorized,
they all are wearing red. There was no color distinction.
Yes, that's always been the case. That was for the cartoons, which was, by the way, very smart of the people who made the cartoon and the toys. Very smart.
And every property subsequent to that.
Yes, well, they picked it up. All right, so let's go with the ratings. What's a rating?
This was very nearly pick of the week. It was really close. If I give it a 5, Conor will yell at me, because if it was 5, then it should have been pick of the week.
Nah, that's over. He's over that.
I think I'm at a 4.5.
Wow. 4.25.
Wow.
I assume we're both sticking with it.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited about this series.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so that is the patron pick for the week. But if you're a patron at the $5 or higher level, you will be bestowed. You've earned it. Actually, it's not a gift. You've earned it with a patron power. And take it away, Ryan.
Tim Charleston. Funnily enough, I'm in Charleston, West Virginia right now. So I assume Tim is the mayor. That's logical, right? So Tim, mayor of Charleston, has the power where he can animate and command any machines within his vicinity within their capacity. So Josh, you and I were texting earlier today, and I made a comment about having a self-driving car.
Yep.
Like, if Tim hops into a minivan with one of those, like, self-regulating cruise control, like radar cruise control things, he can be like, follow that vehicle to get me to Charleston, West Virginia, and I'm going to take a nap or read my comics so that I can record with Josh later today. And the vehicle can do that. He can't hop in a vehicle and say, fly there, because that's not within the vehicle's capacity, right? It has to be something there has to be something the machine could do. But anything within that machine's capacity that it could do, he can command it to do it, and it will do it autonomously.
There has to be a mystical element, unless he's creating technology that didn't exist.
No, he's imbuing sentience on the machines around him. It's absolutely mystical.
Full sentience, not just
enough
the ability
sentience to follow his commands. Like, I would say, like, it's a dog horse level of sentience.
But it doesn't have a sense of self then.
Unless it depends on, certain machines might. You gotta be a little careful with this power, I think.
Okay. Does it stay? Is it permanent?
No, it's a area of effect. So, like, if he walks too far away from the t-shirt press that he has ordered to produce t-shirts for his threadless store, the machine will shut down if he walks too far away. So there's a range.
All right.
If he walks up to a t-shirt press, he could say, print me 1,000 iFanboy t-shirts, and the t-shirt press will start doing it because that's within its capacity as a t-shirt press. And it's now sentient enough to do it while he's within the vicinity.
I think that you overestimate the automated capability of t-shirt printing.
I mean, Tim might do a lot of troubleshooting in his life, and he might be attaching.
I'm just saying, having worked in printing of books, you would be surprised how manual it is and how many people's hands have to be on it that the machines cannot do just on their own.
I mean, I have a 3D printer at home, and there's just like a little infrared sensor. It seems to do okay. I don't know, Josh. I don't have the power. Tim does.
All right. We're getting on. We're doing okay. But let's pick an audience question. We'll do one.
I think we can do both.
Well, it's whatever. You're on it. Go ahead. Read the first one you want to read. See how we do.
Let's do the second one first and the first one second.
All right.
So Dan Bova from Parts Unknown says, my wife is on the record as unequivocally not liking bacon or watermelon, but I do. And every time I get a perfectly ripe melon, I try to get her to try it again, insisting that this is the watermelon that will change her mind. And she always tells me to shut up and leave her alone. My question, what food, comic book, or movie that you like or that you don't like do people always try to convince you to give it one more try? And has it ever worked? I've been thinking about this question since breakfast.
What does it have to do with comics?
What
what
food or comic book
I
or
landed
movie?
on the food. I mean, there's
Well,
all
I think we
sorts.
can talk about food. I mean, I picked this because
Sure.
you and I are food. We're food guys. We like food.
I do, and then apparently that's been a problem health wise. So we're eating a lot less red meat. This is a pet peeve of mine. At the same time, there's actually a lot of things I don't like to eat, and I'm not proud of it. I would change it if I could. People act like it's some sort of choice, but it's a like I don't eat cheese. It's a huge pain in my ass, because everything comes with cheese, and when you ask to not put cheese on something, they usually just put it on anyway. And then I have to go through the question, and there's many people out there thinking right now, how do you not like cheese? Are you serious? By the way, I eat pizza with cheese on it. I don't know. That doesn't make sense. I can't eat it on anything else. I know it's a very mild cheese. I don't like it super cheesy. I would never get extra cheese, but I don't eat that. I don't like it. For whatever reason. I never have. There's a lot of things. I don't eat eggs. I don't eat fish. I don't want to. It's all texture shit. My son's the same way. I think he's a super taster. I don't really know. And no one's ever going to convince me to it, but I hate the conversation. I hate why have you not loved cheese? Ugh, drives me nuts. You seem to be the person who likes everything.
I do. I often identify as the least picky eater in any group of people.
Oh, that's a superpower.
The thing I don't love. This is weird. I have a weird block. I don't like pickles when they're made from cucumbers, which is the default pickle type.
Isn't that the definition of pickle?
Right. But like I'll eat anything else pickled. Like I love kimchi. I don't love sauerkraut, if I'm being honest, which is a betrayal of my German heritage, I admit. But like a pickled carrot, a pickled jalapeno, pickled peppers, whatever. Like I'll eat anything pickled. I don't love pickled cucumbers, which I get are the default.
Ever.
No, I mean I will eat them, and
right.
I'm the kind of person where it's like, if I don't like something that everyone else loves, I assume I'm wrong.
Oh, sure.
So every time I get a sandwich that comes with like a half pickle spear, I'll force myself to take like I'll bite it in half. Like I'll take a half bite of it and I'll eat it and I'll be like, I don't love this. And then I'll give it to Julie or whoever I'm dining with. Well, usually Julie, because not many other people I'm dining with want to eat my half-eaten food. So I have a weird thing about pickles. I have a few textural issues with food, but by and large, I'm a pretty unpicky eater. But I guess that there's the idea of like the movie or the comic or the other media property that people in your life try to get you to engage with that you just never quite get around to. Do you have one of those?
I'm sure I do. I guess for me, it's X-Men. If we have to talk about a person who talks about mainstream comics all the time and me sort of not ever really being able to get into X-Men on a consistent basis, there's stories here and there, but I can't be bothered. Related Deadpool. I don't really care about Deadpool.
Let's fucking go.
There's Legion of Superheroes. And then I'm sure there's a bunch as you get out of comics. There's a lot of like classic comics that I think I have. I've never read Love and Rockets. I tried to read it once a long time ago. I'm sure if I went back to it and actually gave it the time, I would love it.
I feel like Elf Quest is like, there's like a whole contingent of people that love Elf Quest that I've just never been able to penetrate.
Is that still going?
I don't know.
I mean, like, I was thinking of Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, Umbrella Academy. They're like, these are things that people love that I don't care about.
Yeah, and so what about, like, is there like a movie or other property? Like, so my wife is a huge Lord of the Rings nerd.
Really? And you're, well, I'm saying really because you're not, is what you're about to say.
Exactly. Yeah. So like Julie taught a course at UC Berkeley on the history of Middle Earth, where like
wow, she's like a Stephen Colbert kind of dude.
Yeah, she and Stephen Colbert could go toe to toe and talk the Silmarillion for. All right, so when I first met Julie before we were dating, when we were just like friends, and I thought she was cute, like I tried to listen to the Silmarillion as a book on tape while working in a lab where my job was literally washing dirt. So like pretty tedious. Snort. Yeah, and like I couldn't get through the Silmarillion. Like as boring as washing dirt is, and as hot as I felt that my crush was at the time, I could not get through the Silmarillion.
I read the Silmarillion. It was a slog.
Ugh.
I don't remember any of it.
So I feel
I do know that there's a I can't remember what it's called, but there's an appendix at the end of the last book, The Return of the King, and it sort of has to do with the scouring of the Shire, and Merry and Pippin is my favorite part of the whole book. Like I remember that, and so I was like, I'll do the Silmarillion, and I was like, oh, this is rough.
And I'm actually I've never read. I got like halfway through The Hobbit before burning out, but now that I've got a kid, I think I'll actually get through all that.
Oh, The Hobbit's like a kid's book. It's easy,
right? Exactly. And the Scouring the Shire, I've heard about. I've been told about all this. One of my first hangouts with my wife, we were with my buddy Jesse, who you've met, Josh, and Jesse, just trying to be nice, said, "Hey, so Julie, where did dwarves come from?" And I was like, "No, don't, hang on, like stop." And then, an hour and a half later, we were still listening to the explanation of dwarven origins. So I would say, unfortunately, Lord of the Rings has been the thing for me that I've never been able to get into.
I mean, my two buddies here, are way into David Lynch and Twin Peaks. I can't stand David Lynch. I don't get it.
I get it.
No, and a lot of people like me do, but I'm not into it. What about you in terms of comics?
That's a good question.
It's hard, right?
I feel like over the years, James Syme has handed me stuff that like I'm like, yeah, I get why this has value, but I'm not sure I can plug into it.
Yeah,
and that's not a bad thing.
A lot of this is old. It's like Paul Pope or something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a British comic guy named Ryan Hughes, Ryan with an I.
I remember him.
And he did a bunch of stuff where it's like, I read it and I'm like, this is gorgeous, but I can't follow really what's happening. And so it's not even like I reject it or not into it. It's just like, I'm not sure. I don't know that I see the value in it that other people are getting out of it, but it's not in a dismissive way, but it's just in a,
I think that's the case. You're not built for it. It's not talking to you.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? Actually, a more recent version of it, and as I tried it the whole time, is that a sequel to Nice House on the Lake came out this week. I don't remember, was it on the ocean or something? Not Nice House was somewhere else. And I tried for the longest time.
Nice House by the Sea.
Yeah, and I tried for the longest time to like that, and I was like, I don't get it. And there's a bunch of stuff that Tinian does that I don't get. Again, it's not really bad. He does a bunch of stuff I do like, but a lot of it, the stuff that's really successful for him, it's not resonating with me, and I don't really know why. Yeah, we could go on about this for a really long time. All right, your call. Do you want to do the next one?
Sure.
All right, I'll read it. Rev from Parts Unknown. Rev's like an old timer. Like Rev it's R3V, but like an OG fan base. As I lay awake last night battling insomnia, I started thinking, as one does, about superhero hair. From Logan's pointy do to Guy's bowl, there have been a lot of iconic hairstyles in comics over the years. Who has the best hair? Who has the worst? Who could benefit from a trip to the salon for a new style? Were there any makeovers you liked or hated? If hair was rated by iFanboy rate costumes, whose hair would be Electro? I've been thinking about this since about 3 a.m. Pacific time, so roughly 8.5 hours. I need a nap. I took a nap today. It was great.
I got no nap. I got nothing.
Oh God, I love a nap.
I'm gonna crash.
The nap has really become preeminent in my 40s.
As soon as we're done, I'm out of here. I feel like I have a obvious answer and then a deep cut.
All right, go ahead. I hadn't prepared for this question, so I'm having a little hard time thinking of an example. See if you can get me started.
The obvious answer is Logan. like Wolverine does have the best hair. Beast, Hank McCoy is like sort of just mimicking Logan's hair on top of that.
Isn't it? I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg thing, but I think of Logan as the main guy with that hair. And then everybody else, they sort of like, hey, let's use that hair on that character. But I don't think he is first, because there's other characters who had the hair before Wolverine was created. Star Fox or...
The question for me always was, like, did they just base his hair off the shape of his mask? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that. I've never heard an interview with...
I remember very specifically being a kid and looking at Wolverine's hair, like, for the first time reading those comics and just thinking, like, what is it supposed to be? Like, you know what I mean? Like I've never seen hair that looks like that in real life. I have no realistic version of what that's supposed to be at all, which is something. I think in comics, the hair is often best. You have two options. You have the weird iconic hairstyle that is just endemic to the character and it never goes anywhere and it never changes. Like Wolverine's hair changes a bit here and there, but it's always the same basic shape, or should be. A lot like Superman's hair, the spit curl. Mm-hmm. So you've got that weird kind of haircut. And I'm trying to think of others. There's probably a mohawk here or there or something like that.
Well, that was actually going to be my sort of less mainstream pick, was going to be Gladiator, the Shi'ar... the Shi'ar warrior with the amazing mohawk. Mm-hmm. I would say he's got maybe my favorite hair in comics, and many in the Shi'ar Empire have great hair, which always, since I've learned more about evolutionary biology and the Earth world, the Shi'ar are supposed to be avian. They're supposed to be bird people. So the fact that they even have hair as opposed to feathers always kind of drove me a little bit insane, but I can live with it because the hair is fabulous enough to warrant. Yeah,
I think so. You've got that category, and I think the other one is like normal hair, sort of non-specific, non-era based, normal hair. And when they try to, like in the 80s, when they tried to give them, mullets. Or I guess it was in the early 90s, like none of that ages well. So just kind of keep it neutral, because I think some of these characters are, like they need to be a little bit timeless. So Peter Parker,
I was going to say Mary Jane,
short hair. Yeah, Mary Jane's a good one, but that has a lot more to do with color. And there's certain characters, and they're often the women, like they can change their hairstyles a lot, and that kind of works. You get your Storm or your Dazzler or your whatever, and their hair can be changed to sort of indicate character, sort of what version of that character they're going to be in that story. I don't know. I have a really hard time.
I would say... Go ahead.
No, so there's certain things that are persistent. Like if you think about it, like Daredevil seems to always have, like his hair is sort of shaggy, goes down over his forehead a little bit. It's always a little longer. It's not that neat. It's like a guy who can't really see his hair and just make sure it's where it's supposed to be. It doesn't look bad. The fact that, it always says something like the characters like Peter Parker, his hair is usually not over his forehead. It's up and back so that you can sort of see his whole face. It makes him more open. Things like that happen a lot. I think hair can say things about people, but I think it's usually on a case by case basis. Quentin Quire is a character who's like, his hair is weird, but it's, the fact that it's pink. I feel like maybe they do it. Okay, here's the thing. Maybe in comics, the style isn't as important as the color. Because they have sort of every option at their command in terms of color. Clearly Jack Kirby just had a redhead fetish. Like it's not even close. Or, like literally he just thought about it in terms of like production. Like it looks good on a page compared to everything. I don't know.
In terms of like my favorite character relative to having terrible hair has to be Dick Grayson. Like Dick Grayson has had some of the worst hairstyles relative to how much I love that character. He's had terrible ponytails. He's had terrible shaggy bangs. There's like a moment in the Chuck Dixon run where his ponytail gets cut off in the middle of a fight. I think because Chuck Dixon just needed an excuse to fix the terrible hairstyle he'd been saddled with.
I agree that should have happened.
Yeah.
All right. We flogged that one to death. I don't think it's fair to ask like a middle-aged man and you're not officially middle-aged yet, are you?
I'm 38.
No, you're not. You're not there. You're soon.
Okay.
There is a certain point where you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to look like anymore. Because like you're not an old man. Like when old men just sort of give up, but you don't want to look like a young kid. So I don't know what to do with my hair anymore. So you end up sticking with a haircut you always had, which is why old people look old, because they got the same haircuts they had in the 40s.
Interesting.
Yeah. So just,
But you still have hair.
Oh, that's one of my few blessings, and do not think for a second that I do not appreciate it.
Nightcrawler, Kurt Wagner. I think the mutants really have it in the hair discussion.
Yes. And I think Nightcrawler is a good example of like he's actually had a bunch of different haircuts over the years. And again, I think that they've been indicative of like where he's at personally.
Rev brought up the Green Lanterns. I actually think there's an interesting diversity of haircuts within the Green Lantern Corps. Like Kyle Rayner very much has sort of gone through the Dick Grayson progression of like, floppy 90s hair. But, Hal Jordan's always had sort of the high and tight military cut, Jon Stewart as well. But, there's a very distinct difference between white men and black men when it comes to that type of hair. And then, the Green Lanterns actually are a good sort of representation of different hairstyles in the comics.
Guy Gardner's a really good example, is not unlike Wolverine in that
there's an iconic style that he can't get away from, but it's terrible.
Yeah, but also like it's always like they either reduce or increase its presence so that even when he's sort of modernized, it's kind of there. I like that.
I think there's one glaring category we have left out of this discussion. I'm going to say it real quick and then we'll move on. Spider-Man's villains. Norman Osborn's hair is ridiculous.
They've stuck with it. You're right. That's a really good one.
Doc Ock's hair is ridiculous. Sandman's hair is ridiculous. Like, Spider-Man has a lot of foes with ridiculous hair that they clearly thought made sense on some. The Owl is another. I guess that's more of a Daredevil / Spider-Man foe.
That's a Wolverine hair, though.
Yeah, it is. So, it's a good question.
You know what? I think I'm going to go with male characters, but black male characters frequently tend to look very much of the era that they were drawn in. And I think that that's largely because, for the most part, they were white male artists. And so they would like look and see what people looked like in media at that time. And so like every time,
the touch-up protocol.
Yeah, like every time you see Black Lightning, he's got his hair is like the indicator of what era he's supposed to be in.
Interesting. That's a good observation.
Just a thing I noticed.
I like it.
So if you want to write in, you can write at contact@ifanboy.com. If you have a question for our Media Explode show, make sure you put Media Explode in the subject line. There's been a lot of really good questions lately, and we appreciate those of you who are sending them in and being thoughtful about it. So keep that coming, because more choice is always better. Let's see. 2 weeks ago, there's a Media Explode that came out. That was our summer mailbag, which is where we read those emails that we were just talking about. This past week, I released an episode of Talksplode with James Robinson. Now, you wrote here the return of James Robinson. We've never done a long-form conversation with him. We've had him on the video show for short conversations.
Again, I did not write this. Conor
wrote
really?
This. Interesting. Really? He wrote this all out for you?
Yeah.
Wow, he doesn't trust you at all.
No, he doesn't.
This week,
can we offline that part of the discussion? Because
let's do it here. Let's next week. I'm being told
I've had James Robinson on my show, so
really?
it's one of the best interviews I've ever had. I haven't listened to yours yet. I'm super excited about it, but yeah, James Robinson is a great hang.
This week, Conor wrote it. This is going to be a Deadpool and Wolverine show. I haven't signed on for that. I don't know when I would see it, but
I responded to the email thread saying I also probably couldn't do it. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see how it goes. Conor's not going to do a solo show. That's a challenge. Later in August, there will be a show on Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earth Part 3.
Correct.
Later in August, there will be a Booksplode on Lone Wolf and Cub Omnibus Volume 1.
AKA Mandalorian the comic.
Mandalorian the comic. I don't know how I never knew it, but I was like, oh, wait, I see. I just finished the first one, and I'm ready to move on to the second one, but I can't because I haven't recorded it yet, and I'll forget which one was in which, so I have to wait until we record it. I need to tell you right now, if you haven't read those, you're missing out. You can find our library of 1,389 shows or so at iFanboy.com, where you get your podcasts. Follow us. Where do you get podcasts? How do you do it?
I use an app on my Apple iPhone called Downcast.
Okay, Downcast. I think nobody I know uses the same thing. I use Overcast.
A lot of people I know use Overcast. Downcast, it's like a $3 download for the app, but I found it to be the best replacement to the terrible Apple Podcast app.
I left that a long time ago.
Yeah.
You can follow us individually. CS Kilpatrick, Jay Flanagan, and Ryan Haupt. Pretty easy on Instagram.
You can also subscribe on youtube.com/iFanboy, where you'll find all of I take part in this, our old video shows that we post. And we post this show every week on the YouTube channel. Please consider writing us a review or leaving a star rating on Apple Podcasts, Downcast, Overcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I would like to thank you all for listening. I happen to be Ryan.
That would make me, according to the paper here, Josh. And I can confirm that, having been Josh for quite some time, that is the correct information.
Sure. And I can confirm that Josh, myself, maybe not so much, we'll see you next week. Please stay safe out there.
Yeah, I agree with that very much.
Don't get lost in any caves.
If you have the secret to help a society out, give him to that guy, even if he's your enemy.
That's just good, solid advice for
I think
maintaining